Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Podcast The Storm, where social awkward outcasts, crazy weirdos, and all of our nerds convene, talk, and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the nerdy occultist, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Good evening, everyone. I am very tired, but it's the good kind of tired where I've been doing fun shit all weekend.
And I'm your host last time. I want to be the brains of pop culture. I'm doing.
Like I say, I'm tired, but it's the good kind of tired. I also have no more money to my name until the first of the month when my disability rolls over again. But it's less glaring than it otherwise would be because there's only one more week. And I will find a piece of wood to knock on as I say this. Hopefully, nothing too strenuous needs to happen in a week. Have successfully knocked. Anyway.
In the. Hold on. Yeah, hold on. It's. Everything's been slow. So, Dalton, you want to recap us how your weekend's been?
Well, we got rained out, which meant that most of the melee type stuff had to be moved inside rather than outside, which made a bunch of people upset. But I, being of the more inside preferring persuasion and not a big fan of getting sunburned and shit, was okay with this. It did not, however, affect the feast plans, which was good because we had one of our former kings in charge of the kitchen, and the man knows how to put a feast together, let me tell you. There were like 5 courses plus dessert. It got to the point where I had to start skipping courses so that I would have room left for the dessert. And that is a good day. I think that might be the first like actual legitimate multi-course meal I've ever had. And while we were on my back, there was kind of a secondary event that was dealing with the sort of arts and sciences angle, and it was it was from another of our former kings who literally bought a deconsecrated church and turned it into a castle. This person is also absurdly wealthy. In case the bought a deconsecrated church and turned it into a castle didn't give it away, but yes. Good times were had in most intervals, and we didn't actually have to deal with or I guess I should say, I didn't have to deal with the weather anyway, because Melee Madness is a great event for me simply because the owners of the campground we use let me and my friends stay in the cabin. My other friend Nick decided to rough it in his tent the first night because he needed to prepare his tent for Penzik and he wanted to see how it held up. Penzik is sort of the the massive giant event for the SEA that's held in PA every year around my birthday. And he needed to test his tent, so he willingly subjected himself to the rain that first night. But it's probably not a coincidence that he decided, fuck it, I'm going to pull my tent down and end up in the cabin with you guys, which was the correct decision. But there's only so much I can gloat about that, because obviously he does need to know whether that tent works. There was a particularly funny situation though. Speaking of my friend Nick, we were talking to another friend of ours, Kelsey, she's adorable in like the most cutesy, least threatening way possible. And she was telling those of us that were in the conversation about how she usually let Nick do the talking when they got in trouble because she didn't have much of a poker face. But then Nick said that I didn't have much of a poker face. And so I, being as I am a tricky bastard, decided to play a little trick on him where I took my baclofen meds and I hid them up my sleeve. And then when he came back to the table, he started freaking out looking for them. And I, of course, kept a straight stone face, and only once he escalated to the point where it would get involved in other people that I reveal what had happened and decide to remind him who he was talking to. And he laughed as well. It probably helped that he was very, very drunk at the time, as my friend Nick usually ends up being. But anyway, on with the show.
Okay. So Dolan sent this. It's originally from Variety.com. The Odyssey: Why Elon Musk and his troll army attacks aren't just silly but wildly inaccurate. It's published May 13th, 2026. Written by Marlo Stern.
We will get into it as we get into it, but I'm going to suspect that I'm going to suspect that the author is being a butthurt little bitch because they don't want the movie to get criticism, even justified criticism. But anyway, moving on.
Right. From the team that brought you Why is Snow White Latina? Why are there black people in the Rings of Power? And Star Wars has gone woke, comes the latest online onslaught against an anticipated Hollywood project that committed the unfathomable sin of having a diverse cast.
Okay. First of all, none of the you can take issue with some people on the culture war side. You can take issue with the Garys and the Maulers and the Geeks and Gamers and so on. But none of those examples you just listed were invalid complaints. Going down the list, why would a Snow White adaptation feature a white character? I hate to burst your bubble, boys, but the clue is in the fucking name, you cunt. As for why are there black people in Rings of Power, that's not what most people informed on the lore were asking. It's why are there black characters in the west of Middle Earth? There's an entire fucking nation of black characters in the kind legendarium. They're called Easterlings. And the men of the South also, I believe, are of a different racial caste. Given that you wanted to tell a social justice adjacent story in Tolkien's mythos, why in all the fucks did you not just focus it on the men of the East trying to resist first Melkor and then Sauron? And why wouldn't you? This is just my perennial complaint with Rings of Power. If you want to tell a diverse story within the Tolkien Legendarium, you are perfectly free to do that. You can even have your oppressor-oppressed dichotomy, because the men of the East, the Easterlings, are explicitly racially diverse characters who have a history of being oppressed by the Vala known as Melkor, and then by Sauron. So if you wanted to tell your oppressor-oppressed diverse caste story within Tolkien's Legendarium, why in God's name are you focusing it in the west of Middle-earth, which are meant to mimic Western Europe, instead of focusing a story on the east? And hell, given that we haven't ever actually seen the two blue wizards on screen yet, if you wanted to have diverse wizards too, it would make perfect sense for the two blue wizards to have a darker complexion if they're trying to fit in with the Easterlings and therefore raise them up to fight Melkor and then Sauron in turn. That is a story you could have told within Tolkien's mythos and not altered a godforsaken fucking detail. You didn't do that. Instead of telling a story within the portion of Middle Earth where you actually fucking, know that there are people of different races, and tell your oppressor-oppressed story in a setting where the oppressor-oppressed thing could actually work, you could have done that. You could have even done the humanizing evil thing, considering that the Easterlings generally are more susceptible to the evils of Melkor and Sauron than the men of the West are. So you could have done your sympathy for evil. You could have done your oppressor-oppressed dichotomy. You could have done your racial gobbledygook thing. And you could have gone with entirely original designs for entirely original characters, and no one would have had an eye. I forget what the last thing they said was in that list. Sorry, getting too fucking deep into the Tolkien weeds.
You done?
Yes. What was the last thing in that list?
Star Wars gone woke.
Oh yes, okay. When Kathleen Kennedy and Leslie Headland explicitly say that they want it to go that way, you don't get to then retcon it and act like Star Wars going woke is not a thing that the people in charge of it, Rian Johnson, Kathleen Kennedy, and Leslie Headland, explicitly intended to do. Leslie Headland wanted to be subversive and do a corruption arc, and viewed Osha's rejection of Soul as a rejecting the paternalistic meddlings of the patriarchy. Rian Johnson explicitly said he wanted to turn Star Wars on its head because he didn't like the Star Wars mythos very much. And Kathleen Kennedy explicitly said she wanted the Force to be female and to center minority credentials and blah 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 blah. You can't simultaneously give these people credit for doing the things they do and then ignore the things they do when those things have negative consequences. These things are true whether you like them or not. I'm not the biggest fan of Geeks and Gamers. I'm not the biggest fan of Gary anymore. Not that he would remember me, even if I was possibly one of those things. And generally speaking, I find people like the Critical Drinker and Mahler to be slightly myopic and overly simplistic in their criticisms and credentials, blah. Love Little Platoon though. Little Platoon, even when I disagree with Little Platoon, I can never say that he is not going over the thing with a fine-tooth comb. Little Platoon and I see eye to eye on quite a lot of things, and even when we disagree on a movie, his argument is valid even if I disagree with it. It's not something I can say for the rest of the EFAP crowd, but I sure as shit can say it about Little Platoon. Little Platoon is great. But yeah, you can dislike Critical Drinker, you can dislike Mahler, you can dislike Gary, you can dislike Geeks and Gamers, but you can't say that their arguments are without merit, because out of one side of their face, they're saying this doesn't exist. Out of the other side of their face, though, they're saying, give us credit for this thing. And you cannot have it both ways. You can't take credit for all the good outcomes of your intentions while simultaneously ignoring all the negative repercussions of your intentions. In the immortal words of V from V for Vendetta, I've not come for what you've hoped to do, I've come for what you did. And in that instance, those three categories of criticism are true and valid vectors for criticism, even if some of the arguments people use against them are somewhat disingenuous some of the time. Moving on.
All right. Recent days, Twitter trolls have formed a phalanx. Sorry.
Yes.
And pointed their Sarissas squarely at the Odyssey, Christopher Nolan's $250 million adaptation of Homer's epic, scheduled to hit theater cinemas July 17th. They have not actually seen the film yet, mind you, but have nevertheless managed to work themselves into a lather over a pair of castings, although Paige's character isn't even confirmed yet. At least Paige as Achilles' ghost and Lupita Nyong'o as Helen of Troy.
Okay. I am sick to death of this you have to watch the entire movie before judging it thing. Because judging a product before you buy it is precisely what the trailer is fucking for. It's like the blurb you find in the back of a book. It's supposed to give a summary of things like plot elements, tone, atmosphere, etc. If you, as the studio, release several shitty, misleading trailers, that is not the audience's fault for judging you based on that trailer you gave. The purpose of a trailer, much like the purpose of an introduction in a book or the blurb on the back of the back cover, is supposed to give you an idea of what you're buying before you buy it, so that you will know whether it is a thing you wish to spend your money on. Moving on.
Forget that Achilles and Helen of Troy are both fictional characters navigating a mythological fable replete with a giant cyclops, six-headed Scylla, and assorted other gods and monsters, or that these are just two actors in a giant cast that includes mostly white folks.
That is such a fucking disingenuous argument. You can't simultaneously milk the Odyssey for cachet and then whine whenever anyone holds you to the standards of the Odyssey. And incidentally, given that we know the Trojan War is a thing that happened, it being fictional is only insofar as the Homeric rendition of the story is a story. You don't complain when you see an adaptation of Shakespeare's Henriade that I don't know, Richard III was never really that evil nor that deformed. Or I guess some people probably fucking do, but they're idiots. We know that these are stories based on events. And you know what? In a Greek adventure mythological epic, I expect there to be gods and monsters because the Greek cosmology was replete with gods and monsters. You can't just pull the there are dragons slash monsters, therefore there are no rules, because one, no, that is not how that works. There are Hellenistic pagans even today, even if I wanted to entertain your bullshit, which I don't because it's a disingenuous argument. And two, you would think that the first and foremost priority in adapting a piece of source material is how faithfully am I adapting the source material? I personally don't care one way or the other about the casting. I think it's a bunch of sun casting. I think it's just what big name actor can we beg, borrow, or steal so that Christopher Nolan can defecate all over the memory of Homer. But that's just me realizing that, casting or no fucking casting, the Nolan Odyssey was doomed from the start because the man lacks any conception of adventure, of whimsy, of mystical, of mythical, of epic in skip. Like the man cannot do sentimentality. The man cannot do whimsy. The man cannot do stylized, wonderful, or wondrous things. Why in the bucks did someone have it in their heads to give Christopher Nolan the I ground every high concept thing I see as much as I can conceivably do so guy? Why did you think giving him the Odyssey was a good idea? And even if you thought because of things like the Tesseract in Interstellar or the reverse time thing in Tenet or the dream bendy shit from Inception, even if you thought that based on all of those that he would be a good guy to bring in for the Odyssey, the difference there being, even if you like stuff like Interstellar, like Inception, like Tenet, which I don't, they were shitty fucking ideas. And in the case of Inception, all he did was take Satoshi Kon's Paprika and drain all the color, life, wonder, and mystery from it. But, even if you assume, based on Christopher Nolan's track record, that he'd be good at the Odyssey, that would require him to move from sci-fi, which is what most of his stuff falls under, either sci-fi or extremely grounded and overly self-serious realism derp in the case of like Dunkirk and stuff like that. Yeah, but Christopher Nolan's realm of expertise, even if you assume his expertise is worth anything, which I don't, but even assuming his expertise is worth something, his expertise is an extremely grounded, extremely high-end science fiction. There is absolutely nothing whatever to insinuate that Christopher Nolan should be making a mythologically epic adventure slash fantasy movie. If this were Peter Jackson, I would be jumping for joy. I would spontaneously develop the ability to jump and start jumping for joy. If I knew that the Odyssey was going to get the same kind of fidelity of treatment that the Lord of the Rings or even just the Hobbit got, this would be a different conversation. Or if you got somebody kind of weird and out there, but very good at this sort of epic, somebody like Gore Verbinski or Darren Aronofsky, I would again be jumping for joy. Even people I don't particularly like much, like Luc Besson or Stephen Summers or even Zack Snyder, all of these I would be more willing to entertain a take on the Odyssey from. But Christopher Nolan just ain't it, Chief. The man has no soul. He sacrifices everything of his soul in the name of technical proficiency, in the name of like assembly line storytelling. Sorry. Yeah, moving on.
All right, Angel. Good to see you. I'm doing fine. There. Uh, in Homer's telling, these two characters were white with golden hair, so according to these apparently literary purists, they must be so in each and every adaptation. I mean, I want to point this out because I know you're probably going to point out sooner or later. Epic the musical, right?
Yes.
Um, and currently doing a kind of prequel called Ilium, I believe, which is set during the Trojan War.
Yes, which is probably adapting the Iliad if I had to guess.
That's why it's yeah. But my point
Mhm.
is that was made by well it's originally based in Porto. Hold on, I don't want. It's been a while since I've looked into the background of Epic. Okay, uh, Jorge Rivera Herans, um, who is from Puerto Rico. Okay. And most of the people he got, well, I believe, were on. Most of the people who, like auditioned via TikTok and stuff. Like, it was very like online thing. But my point is that was a very diverse cast for each role.
From a diverse creator, no less, or
Yeah,
aren't Latinos diverse enough anymore?
depends on who you ask, I suppose. But my point, obviously being, um, no one had a problem with it
No.
because it was generally well made, well created, and um, genuinely entertaining project.
Yeah, and honestly, to piggyback off of you, Brainstormer, since you brought it up before I got the chance to, if like DreamWorks in their prime, like Prince of Egypt, Road to El Dorado in their prime, made that, it would be a perfect adaptation of the Odyssey. Yes, it would take liberties. Yes, it would be quote unquote modernized. But given that, at least ostensibly, that was kind of the fucking point. The kind of the point that the creator of Epic the Musical was making was, if we took the Odyssey and Iliad um, in the same vein as the ancient would have. Homer's Iliad and Odyssey were essentially the blockbusters of their day. So let's find the like closest blockbuster equivalent that would still keep like the poetic lyrics and the like rhyme scheme and shit intact. Which the easiest way to do that is, of course, as a musical. Hence the update that, nevertheless, at every conceivable turn, pays fidelity to the original. Same thing happened with Stephen Fry's version. Stephen Fry wrote a narrative first iteration of the Odyssey that's kind of put in a more modern, like novel storytelling context, but it not only was a very good adaptation of the Odyssey just on its own merits, but actually I think might have added something to the lineage of the story by virtue of its quality. Who thought that instead of doing this, instead of Disney coming in at the 11th hour and swiping Epic the Musical and going, we're going to make a like 2D classically, drawn animated version of this, or again, DreamWorks in their prime, Road to El Dorado, Prince of Egypt, DreamWorks. They could have done this. Everyone in Hollywood could have done this, and hell, if Christopher Nolan honestly came hat in hand to the guy who created Epic the Musical and said, I would like to buy the rights to this from you, I am sure he would have said yes. I would still be annoyed because Christopher Nolan cannot create whimsy, cannot create adventure, cannot create mysticism, mystery, or mythos, but it would have been something. But instead, no, you're going to have Christopher Nolan come in and grind everything epic, everything mythological, everything wondrous, everything whimsical out of the Odyssey, one of the greatest and most all-pervasive adventure stories in the history of the human race. And you're going to let Christopher I ground everything into dust and seriousness Nolan come and shit all over it instead. So yes, while I agree that Lupita Nyong'o probably wasn't the appropriate casting for Helen of Troy, doesn't mean she couldn't be in the movie. She would just have to be like Calypso or Circe, who are, per the story, creatures on islands beyond the Pillars of Hercules, and therefore having them be of non-Mediterranean or at least non like European descent would make perfect sense. And hell, even Pirates of the Caribbean got this right, because for those that don't remember the third Pirates of the Caribbean movie, we find out that the Obe Shamaness Teodolma that we were introduced to in Dead Man's Chest was actually Calypso all along, and they bound her into a single form, which at the time she was talking to Davy Jones apparently was an African one. Nobody cared, because goddesses can be exotic up to a point. Goddesses can be unusual for their surroundings, because part of what makes a god like visually distinctive is that they are both unnaturally beautiful and exotic and otherworldly to some degree. So yeah, if you wanted to cast Lupita Nyong'o as Calypso or Circe, I doubt anyone would have batted an eye. I certainly wouldn't have. They're supposed to be semi-divine beings. They can be whatever race they feel like being at any given time, especially because Circe and Calypso are both also water nymph shapeshifter type creatures. But when you set a story in a particular historical region, like Troy, which we know exists, we have found the remains of the city that is probably Troy. You can't just go willy-nilly with that casting. Yes, in the latter days of the Roman Empire, like the Alexandrian period, there was quite a lot of race mixing because, the empire encompassed like a third of the fucking planet. So if you made a story in the middle of Alexandria, I wouldn't bat an eye about my diversity, because in Alexandria, in the latter part of the Roman decline, you did have bunches of my diversity. But in Greece, in the Odyssey's time period, in the Homeric period, it would have been various strains of Mediterranean. And you can get away with something like that there, and you can get away with some exoticism when it comes to supernatural beings. But please, when you're talking about mostly human, mostly mortal characters, organically from this region, they should probably look like they're from the fucking region, cunt. Moving on. Yes, they did in fact go, there are dragons in it, so we can break whatever rules we want, even the internally necessary and consistent ones.
Okay, I'm back.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Moving forward.
Forget that. Why can't Nolan's film be more like Troy, Wolfgang Petersen's 2004 big screen action version of the Iliad, with its blindingly blonde Achilles played by Brad Pitt, and its Aryan Helen of Troy, Diane Kruger, they argue.
That's not the argument, but if that was the argument, I don't see anything wrong with it. Or hell, just a theory here, mind you. Why don't you hire on merit? And then whoever gets the job got the job on merit, and no one has to give a fuck. Oh, it's because if you were hiring on merit, Christopher Nolan would not be the director of The Odyssey, because nothing in Christopher Nolan's entire style or filmography suggests that he would even be able, let alone successful at adapting The Odyssey. The man can't do epic. The man can't do adventure. The man can't do whimsy or wonder or fantasy. The man can do very, very technically proficient, overly serious, somewhat snobby, desaturated dramas that may or may not contain a high concept sci-fi element or two, in which he shall portray in the lamest and most technically proficient and soullessly, like, refined way possible. That's what Christopher Nolan's oeuvre does. Like, again, there are people you could have gotten to do this. There are several people who I don't even like very much who could have done this better than Christopher Nolan could. And yet, for some reason, either a suit or Christopher Nolan himself was too stupid to go, now wait a minute. This kind of goes against your entire filmography and oeuvre and the entire like design philosophy with which you film things, Chris. Maybe we should give you a different IP to work with. But no one thought that we maybe should get somebody who can do fantasy, can do adventure, can do epic, can do literary adaptations, to do what is the quintessentialist and most iconic mythological adventure epic in the history of Western literature, if not the world over.
You can,
Yeah, I'm good.
Alright.
Sorry, was trying to read what Dragon Turtle just said.
The channels are a little too diverse. It's literally the Simpsons color swatch, skin color thing, just inverted. If you're on at least Indian dark, then you can get fucked.
I'm pretty sure you're thinking of the Family Guy one. There isn't a color swatch thing like that in The Simpsons. There is in Family Guy DC. But yes, I know. Latinos are in roughly the same category as Asians. They're diverse when they suit us, but whenever we can get away with it, we accuse them of perpetuating whiteness, or until one of them pisses us off, and then we'll accuse them of being too white, etc. Yeah. So yes, that is most definitely a thing. But cue the irony alarm once again. We have Hollywood, in the name of being.
So can I keep reading?
Yes, sorry, go ahead.
That latter tweet. Okay, I'm not gonna read. Okay, well there were a couple tweets, but we don't, because how old my computer is, and this is an archived version. We get some like two X post here, which is comparing Helen and Achilles of Troy and Odyssey. And the other one says, "You could have paid me to tank this movie, and I wouldn't have thought of this."
Okay.
Which is regarding the
the castings.
Yeah.
Yes. The castings certainly don't help matters. But honestly, for me, the issue isn't even the diversity of the casting. It's the stunt nature of the casting. It's how many big name actors can we shove into this and hope it works? how many big name actors can we shove into a movie that makes no creative sense for the direction we're taking it until the Academy has to roll over and give us a bunch of Oscars anyway. It's basically their preemptive, yeah, we know the movie is shit, but we have all the famous actors in it, so give us all the Oscars, like preemptive move here. Like Tom Holland as Telemachus, I can almost see, especially because he doesn't get to use his native accent very much. But as I recall, they didn't actually let him use his native accent in the movie. He's still doing the quasi-American thing, as I recall. So that defeats part of it. Like that breaks immersion in and of itself, let alone when Zendaya shows up as fucking Athena. Like maybe it's me getting old, but Tom Holland and Zendaya both still look like they're about 15. And they don't, like, it's less excusable with Zendaya as Athena because she's supposed to be a goddess of tactics and wisdom, and she has neither the military bearing of a warrior nor the like level-headed, dignified air of a like tactician and scholar that she's supposed to have. Also, for large parts of the movie, she's not even in something approximating her true form. She's in the guise of a character who's literally called Mentor. That's where we actually get the word mentor from. We get it from the character in the Odyssey rather than the other way around. But yeah, so for like 2/3 of the movie, she's not even going to be playing the character unless you're going to try and convince me that Zendaya can play an elderly man, which is what Mentor's supposed to look like in like practical effects makeup, which you could do, or you could just have another guy playing the character when Athena takes the guise of Mentor. But far be it from me to pull Christopher Nolan's bacon out of the fire. I hope his bacon burns. Because maybe if this bombs as horribly as it deserves to, we will finally all realize what I've been saying for more than a decade, which is that Christopher Nolan is a pretentious, insufferable, self-serious hack. And any aspect of his movies that are good in spite of rather than because of him. But moving on.
These culture warriors have been led to battle by their own personal Agamemnon, Elon Musk, who's never found a transgender person that hasn't driven him mad, even his own daughter. Musk, who owns Twitter, reportedly manipulates its algorithm to drive eyeballs to his account, frequently signal boosts white grievance campaigns attacking diversity, and according to a Guardian analysis, made allusions to race science or promoted anti-immigrant conspiracy content on 26 out of 31 days in January. Has posted dozens of times in recent days attacking the audience Odyssey over its inclusion of Paige and Nyong'o while extolling Troy.
Okay, here's the thing. As I've already stated, I have absolutely no problem with Lupita Nyong'o being in the Odyssey, but find a character for her to play that it actually makes sense and isn't jarring. Helen of Troy was originally Greek. I don't remember what part of Greece she was particularly from because I haven't read the Iliad anything like as many times as I've read the Odyssey. I've read the Odyssey a lot of times because it is actually one of my favorite pieces of literature, period. It's why I find it utterly insufferable that someone either gave it to Christopher Nolan, in which case, what in the fuck were you thinking? or Christopher Nolan asked and no one put their hand up and said, "Oi, Chris, your entire like design philosophy of directing makes no sense for this story. Please pick something else." Um, but yeah, if Lupita Nyong'o was playing Cersei or Calypso, I would have no problems with this. If it turns out that's who they're actually playing, I will begrudgingly sing the movie's praises a little bit. Because both Cersei and Calypso's islands are supposed to be beyond the Pillars of Hercules, because that was basically the Greek world's cutoff for the end, the end of the world, the beyond this point be dragons sort of thing. And their islands are supposed to be tropical. So having these characters, having these goddesses take the form of a very, very, very attractive black lady makes perfect sense. Doesn't make sense why Helen of Troy should not look like a classical Greek or a classical Trojan, or at the very least Mediterranean. Like, I would accept Morocco at this point, it would be better. But, like, the story is very set in the Mediterranean. The islands within it are named for actual literal places you could fucking sail to in the Mediterranean world. Ithaca is Odysseus' home island, and we know where it is, assuming that it's the same island that's called Ithaca now as was back then. We know roughly where the island of the Sirens would have been because we found certain islands have a natural echo amplifying effect that might have accounted for the sirens singing. We know roughly where Troy was because we have basically found it. Like, we know what the Greeks knew of as Atlantis was because we found it. We just call it the Minoan civilization now. Like this is the thing. Not only is the Odyssey a grandiose mythological epic, but much like Tolkien's epics before them, there are like map references and shit. Except it's even easier with the Odyssey because in the case of the Odyssey, the places that we're mapping to actually still exist. Again, assuming that the same islands are called now what they were back then and shit. Like, this should be relatively easy to avoid fucking up, and yet they're gonna fuck it up anyway, and it annoys me. Moving on.
He has agreed with right-wing troll Matt Walsh's argument that those on the left would be driven to murderous violence if Sydney Sweeney was cast as the most beautiful woman in Africa, laughed at an AI-generated photo of Elliot Page in Greek warrior garb, struggling to open a pickle jar, and accused Nolan of dancing on Homer's grave.
Okay. I don't think this was Christopher Nolan's fault. Although I will give him grief for the things that I actually do think are his fault, namely the tone and the lack of stylization or any eye towards grandeur or adventure anywhere in the proceedings. But I'm 90% sure he's checking these diversity boxes because the Academy insists, ever since the Oscars So White controversy, that you check said diversity boxes in order to be eligible for Oscars, and Christopher Nolan fucking wants his Oscar. I could have sworn he already had one, but apparently not, and apparently he's chosen to defile the grave of the entire basis for Western fucking adventure stories in order to do so. Yeah, I will say this as concisely as I can. While the casting for Christopher Nolan's version of the Odyssey is definitely an issue, the wheels were coming off the trolley before a single character was cast because it's simply the wrong director, the wrong creative direction for the material in which we're working. There are other actors with a similar pedigree to Christopher Nolan, who could have easily done The Odyssey, and had either Disney or DreamWorks or whoever else the fuck decided to buy the rights to Epic the Musical. Hell, A24 is already, high off of music pedigree because of Hazbin Hotel and the Helliverse. So if A24 had bought the fucking rights to Epic the Musical and done an adaptation of Epic the Musical, not only would it be a perfectly good business decision from the perspective of like brand synergy and shit, the adults like musical animation company being what A24 is trying to make itself via Hazbin Hotel. So like there are so many better creatives you could have brought on to do a big budget adaptation of the Odyssey, and it would have worked. Peter Jackson, Gore Verbinski, Darren Aronofsky.
Dalton.
Yeah, but no, instead of that, or instead of a decent adaptation of Epic the Musical, which would have been a really good way to quote unquote modernize the Odyssey, if you insist on that being a thing you decided you need to do, why in the fuck did you give it to Christopher Nolan? And if he asked for it himself, you should have told him no. On the basis that it's not a source material that his style of storytelling can work with. And it should have been plainly obvious to literally everyone who's ever seen a Christopher Nolan movie that this would never work.
Oh my god.
Yeah, moving on.
Yes, I am, Giant Turtle. That has been our entire relationship. Alright. Musk has also boosted claims that Nolan chose to cast black and trans people to satisfy the Academy's representation and inclusion standards for Oscar eligibility, which were announced back in 2020 and went into effect starting in 2024. Really?
I don't give a shit about the trans thing. In the case of the potential Achilles casting of Elliot Page, I have a simple thing. Achilles is a massive, scary dude. Whatever else you may claim as accurate or not, but Achilles is supposed to be essentially a one-man army. And I have no doubt that there are people of the trans persuasion, admittedly, after several decades of fucking testosterone, but I have no doubt that there are people of the trans persuasion who convincingly portray Achilles. But Elliot Page is not one of them. They are of the more effeminate, more androgynous side of the trans scale. If you've decided Achilles needs to that one instance of him cross-dressing to avoid the Trojan War in the first place, fine. That's a thing you can do, I guess. But could you not at least find a trans actor that could fit the bill for the character? And if you go argle, fargle, bargle, something, something, something that are ghosts now, ghosts in Greek, like mythos, in the cosmology of the Greek mythos, are supposed to very strongly resemble the people that they were in life. So, like, we have references in plays, in writings, in stories and songs and everything that we have of the Greeks. We have stories where the dead go back to the world of the living for some reason, usually because they weren't buried well or they didn't have enough money to pay Charon to ferry them over the river Styx, etc. But we have stories all through Greek history where characters come back from the dead to berate their relatives, usually for not burying them correctly or not providing them with enough money to get across the river, and their living relatives that knew them in life being able to recognize them. So if you are telling me that Ghost Achilles looks like Elliot Page, you are also telling me that Achilles looked like Elliot Page, and I'm sorry, but but they are of the more effeminate androgynous trans persuasion, and you should find one that more convincingly passes for masks, please. Moving on.
We do know that Musk is a fan of the Iliad and the Odyssey, having professed this numerous times on the platform, including the following reply to venture capitalist and Trump advisor Mark Andreessen in 2024, after Andreessen tweeted about how there were so much alpha in books from 1870 to 1930. It's unreal.
I mean, that's a very strange cutoff period. That, yeah, there have been alphas, if we want to call them that, all through literary history and just history in general. As much as I find the Jungian archetype theory to be annoying and overly simplistic and usually not very useful, there is a reason why these archetypes do keep recurring, and it's because humans are still what we were in the Stone Age. By evolutionary standards, we are basically all but indistinguishable from the species we were at the conclusion of the hominid wars after all the inbreeding. We have not meaningfully evolved that much in the time we have been human beings as we would now know them today. That's because we are exceedingly well adapted to this environment. But the point being, human nature has not changed that much over the last 10 to 20,000 years, or even going back further, because we actually can backdate further now to about 100,000 years. We haven't changed that much, and so our stories really haven't changed that much either, because our nature as people hasn't changed. So why in the fuck with our stories? And as a result, you can find these reoccurring motifs in lots of different stories if you are so inclined. I find it to be at best, interesting plot exercise, and at worst, a completely counterproductive gimmick to shape your story based on archetypes. But they do recur with some regularity because there are certain things that human beings just like hearing in stories or seeing in stories, depending on the medium. Moving on. Oh, ODT.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry.
You could make an English structure pun, DT. But you have successfully done it. Well played, sir.
All right, I'm back. Sorry, I had to stretch my legs real quick. They were, I don't know, it was getting painful just sitting there.
Yep.
All right. Oh, okay. All right. Sorry.
You missed DT reminding us all of remedial English again.
Thank you, Joe, and good to see you caught up. All right, let's start with the trolls' praise for Troy and work our way toward their misinterpretation of Oscar rules, shall we? For anyone who's a fan of the Iliad, as Musk has purported to be, it's almost impossible to like Troy, which bastardizes Homer's tale beyond belief.
It does. It's a really shitty early 2000s blockbustery type attempt at sort of dude broifying the story of the Iliad. But the solution to that issue is not to soullessly and mercilessly beat death with technicalities and Oscar bait pomp and circumstance and overly self-serious groundedness. I.e., while I'm not the biggest fan of what Troy did, I am even less of a fan of what Christopher Nolan is doing, casting or no fucking casting. Because at least, and I'm being very, very, very charitable here, at least Troy realized it was an action adventure story and supposed to be an epic. Granted, the epic of Troy's case was more of the dude bro / skater boy, bruh, that's epic, rather than, epic poetry. But it's a damn sight closer to what the Iliad is supposed to be than whatever Christopher Nolan is butchering into the Odyssey. Again, it just, yes, everyone should probably be upset about the casting to some degree, but the wheels were already falling off.
Okay, don't
Christopher Nolan
stop.
never should have been allowed to do
Dalton.
an Odyssey in the first place. Moving on.
I'm not going to confirm nor deny that, Dragon Turtle. I was mainly just stating I might have some untreated or undiagnosed ADHD. I don't really like sitting for long periods of time.
Granted, yes, you're probably both right. My voice is annoying and insufferable.
No, it's not your voice.
I know. I was piggybacking off of what Dragon Turtle said.
I know.
I don't blame anyone who hates my voice. I don't like my voice
motherfucker,
either.
it is not your voice. You talk too much. Is kind of usually my issue sometimes. I say that as your friend.
Yes. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. Also, I was like stuck in a car for like 2 hours last night, so my legs are still adjusting from that. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
There was a lot of driving sickness for me today as well.
Yeah.
Like if we hadn't gotten home exactly when we did, me and my roommate would have both fallen asleep, which is bad because he was the one driving the car.
Yeah. The thing is, I can't even pace because I'm wearing a headset, so I literally can't walk too much while I'm on here. So
I would say you should get a Bluetooth headset, but you're still using a computer from like 2010, so
2009, but yeah.
Yeah, there are other things that need to be upgraded before we can worry about wireless headset being a thing.
Yeah. All right. Where was? It's probably. I'm gonna be honest. It is probably the articles. Honestly. Okay. Where was? Okay. It casts the Menelaus, played by Brendan Gleeson, is one of the villains of its story. As Hector, Eric Bana kill Menelaus to save Paris. Orlando Bloom, clearly negating Menelaus' appearance in the Odyssey, makes Patroclus, Achilles, played by Garrett Hudlin, Achilles' cousin instead of his companion. And according to Acilius Lover, allows Hector's wife, Andromeda, Stephen Burrows, and son Styniax to escape Troy through a tunnel system, where a subsequent Greek test depicted her as being captured and her son hurled from the walls of Troy by Achilles' son. Makes the Trojan War seem like it took a matter of weeks instead of a decade. Completely excises the Greek gods, and most infuriatingly has Briseis Roseburn kill Agamemnon, thus erasing one of the great Greek tragedies, Aeschylus's the Aristeria.
Okay, all of that is probably very valid criticism of 2004's Troy. But here's the thing. Just because Troy got a bunch of shit wrong does not mean Christopher Nolan gets carte blanche to do whatever soullessly pointless technocratic thing he's going to do to the thing. And as far as excising the gods, badly portraying the gods, I would argue, is slightly worse. Because at least in the absence of gods in Troy, you can argue, the gods were behind things and working through the human characters and so on, as gods occasionally want to do. But badly portraying the gods, I don't imagine. I remember when they did the Black Cleopatra thing a couple of years ago, and basically all of Egypt boycotted it because that's our culture. How dare you? I suspect very strongly that any Hellenist the world over, and particularly any proud or in any way nationalistic Greeks, are going to be boycotting the fuck out of this. Granted, a Hollywood version of the Odyssey was always going to probably feature ethnicities other than Greek, just because there probably aren't that many leading star material Greeks in Hollywood. Granted, I wish we still lived in the era where Hollywood could occasionally find an unknown star and make them a star by giving a really good performance, but that's a deeper conversation about fixing all of Hollywood and one thing at a time. But I doubt that Greece would have been particularly annoyed had they gone the usual Hollywood epic, everyone is kind of quasi-British standard. That's like the default standard for all big serious epics.
I'm sorry, it's just someone came to mind that I think would. I mean, he's Indian, but I think just given his credentials and his talent, he'd be a good because I think we talked about Matt Damon. Matt Damon's not a bad actor, but I just can't see him playing Odysseus.
He doesn't register as smart, exactly.
I think it depends on what kind of smart you're talking about. Street smart, yeah, but besides,
but the problem is,
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not trying to have an argument on this. It's just Dev Patel as Odysseus.
I haven't seen enough from him to determine whether or not he would be good.
I think you have. You just don't know or remember. Slumdog Millionaire, Green Knight, Monkey Man.
Okay. Yeah. This guy could have. Speaking of directors that would have been a much better choice for the source material of the Odyssey, guy who did Green Knight would be good. Also, Robert Eggers, who did The Northman and Nosferatu, would. Robert Eggers probably would have been my go-to because he's still young enough and hungry enough that he would be inclined to go the whole hog and show off.
I think he's also in that good medium between artistic and technical savvy, but also
remembers that if if no one is entertained or finds joy in what I'm producing, then we're fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, speaking of guys with a track record that suggests they would be able to do this, in the same way that I would trust Peter Jackson to do a version of the Odyssey because of like Lord of the Rings, I would definitely trust Robert Eggers to do the Odyssey on the basis of if he treats the Homeric poetry, if he treats the Homeric epics like he treated the Eddas and the sagas of Norse mythology, and Norse chroniclership, with the same, if he treated Homer with the same um with the same uh fealty that he treated the Eddas, we would genuinely be onto something big here. And it would be the first like actual major like blockbuster he did. Obviously the Northman and Nosferatu and I want to say The Witch was his too, but I always get him and Ari Aster confused.
The Witch.
Yeah.
That was him.
Yeah,
One of his, it was like one of his
obviously
first
all
films.
of those became sort of moderate blockbusters because of how successful they were. But
Oh,
I
don't forget
mean,
that. Did you mention The Lighthouse?
I don't think I did.
Yeah, I
But
think that
anyway,
was,
the point I'm making is even though all of those did really, really well because of how good they were and how much word of mouth spread on them, it would genuinely be an upgrade for him to get your like $250 million blockbuster. Given how far he's made cheap stretch, like how far he's made money stretch with The Witch, with Nosferatu, with The Northman, if you gave him a Christopher Nolan sized budget and said, do for the Odyssey what you did for the Norse Eddas, not only would it be infinitely better than the pretentious Oscar bait slop we're going to get from Nolan, but it would possibly be one of the greatest movies of all fucking time. And it would be it would be an adaptation of the Odyssey worthy of the legacy of the Odyssey. Granted, I'm always of the mind that says if two directors could each add something unique to it, have them work together. Like I really wouldn't mind seeing a joint between Robert Eggers and Ari Aster, like with them working together to do the Odyssey. Because I think Ari Aster is a little bit better at the, how to put it, the sort of surrealist aspects, and Robert Eggers is better at making stories that make sense. So if we could get them to pool their talents and give them the budget that they for whatever reason gave Christopher Nolan.
okay, now that I'm thinking about it, just I don't know. I don't think. I mean, the only actor I can think Robert Eggers. Like again, if we're going with him to be like the primary director for an Odyssey, right?
Yeah.
The only actors I think he's like worked with multiple times has been Willem Dafoe.
You know what?
'Cause
I am going to be somewhat controversial here. I can see it with William Dafoe. With Willem Dafoe. Because Willem Dafoe he's always been very good at a mix between like street clever smarts and like
okay, but I wasn't. I was still going off my idea of Dev Patel being Odysseus.
mm,
I wasn't sure who will like. I was thinking like what actors would have like Robert Eggers would have pulled like to work with again for an Odyssey adaptation. I was thinking of uh what is his he was Nosferatu. I can't remember his fucking name right. It's right there. Bill Skarsgård. But I don't know who he would play. Is the thing.
Bill Skarsgård. Who could Bill Skarsgård play?
I'm also thinking one of the gods, but I'm not entirely sure who. Maybe Hermes?
Yeah, I could see that. Because Hermes is kind of the perpetual youth of the gods, kind of, and he's supposed to have like a runner's build because messenger carrying everything from hither, dither, and yon. I could see Bill Skarsgård pull that off.
I was gonna say Poseidon because I think he can pull off that vengeful wrath and like the rage too. But
Who would that would be it? Because well, this is massively oversimplifying things, like massively. Poseidon is more or less the main villain of the piece in the Odyssey,
yeah,
even though Odysseus kind of does it to himself by blinding Polyphemus. Who would play Poseidon?
Willem Dafoe.
No, and I will
Oh.
tell you why. I want to save Willem Dafoe to be mentor when Odysseus or when Athena is in the guise of the old man, because I can see Willem Dafoe kind of doing a nudge nudge wink wink kind of mentor role to whoever we get to play Telemachus, which yeah, but I like the idea of Bill Skarsgård as Hermes. Which leads to where are we sticking Poseidon? Well, I mean, obviously we should look in the direction of Swimmer's build because, well, god of the fucking sea. So, trying to think.
I feel like we really gotta look at like actors who have like theater experience.
Yeah, you definitely want like a classically trained Shakespearean actor for most of the gods because they're supposed to be, epic and grandiose and very much of the like Shakespearean mold.
Okay, well then that crosses out one I was thinking of. Well, more so, I just don't think you think he would work as Poseidon.
Mm.
Benedict Cumberbatch. See, the fact that you're hesitating is already like.
Yeah, I don't. I feel like he should be the king. I believe it's Aristeus who gives Hermes the now I've got Hermes on the brain. Who gives Odysseus the bag of winds? I could see Benedict Cumberbatch playing that role.
Okay, and Stellan Skarsgård is a bit too old, mind you, to play. I could see him playing as Poseidon, but he's a bit too old.
Russell Crowe for Poseidon. It'd be a nice little nod to Gladiator. I think he can play the like menacing, like wrathful, thunderous.
Thunderous.
Well, yeah, because I mean the thunderbolt is Zeus's weapon, but if you've ever seen what the sea looks like when it's angry,
It's a storm. Yeah, well, I was just like,
It's
I'm
still, yeah, it's still, but yeah, like, um, yeah, I could see Russell Crowe as Poseidon.
would you trust who? Okay, keep in mind, Dev Patel as Odysseus, Penelope.
Penelope, that is a good question. Who is our Penelope?
And correct me if I'm wrong. Basic information I know of Penelope is she's a daughter. She's a princess of Sparta. Correct.
Yes.
Okay. So you kind of need someone who is. Well, okay. If I remember how women of Sparta were. I mean, everyone in Sparta was pretty much tough. Let's be fair on that.
Well, yes, but also Penelope has to be a Penelope has to be someone who looks like they could be on the same level as Odysseus when it comes to brains, because the whole unweaving the burial shroud every night, and keeping the suitors at bay for
20
a
years.
decade, and yeah,
Well, no, yeah, it would have been a decade because the war and everything. Yeah. Altogether 20, but she would have just been fending them off for a decade. Yeah.
yeah. But trying to
Yeah,
think,
you need a commanding presence.
an older like maternal woman, maternal. I don't know how old Dev Patel is the problem. And I don't know many.
Is it that old?
Would you say you roboted?
Definitely not that old.
Okay,
I'm looking him up.
so someone who could play. Opposite Dev Patel.
Here it
Hmm?
was
You roboted again.
with those.
Yeah, yeah, she could do it. She could definitely do it. I think Athena is fairly obvious to both of us. Gal Gadot. Oh dear, I believe we have lost. We have lost our brainstormer. Technical difficulties. And while we're waiting for him, I will go ask my roommate something important. Hey, did you bring my meds in from the car?
They're in your suitcase.
Uh, where in my suitcase? The only ones I found were my amitriptyline. Okay.
There we go.
Just I remember the last time we took them out to the car, and I don't feel like panicking at 3 a.m. again.
Well, that's the great thing about parenting. You don't need to feel like it. It just happens.
Okay. Crisis averted. Obviously, we had to take my meds on the road with us when we went to places this weekend, and the last 2 times we've done that, one of us has forgotten it in the car. Yeah, DT, it couldn't possibly be because Gal Gadot has beauty worthy of a goddess, and we've already seen her play a literal Amazon warrior and really like vibed with the whole poised, graceful warrior thing. Couldn't possibly be like it would be the only logical upgrade from Diana or anything. Yeah. Couldn't possibly be that Gal Gadot is one of the most beautiful women on the fucking planet as we speak.
Hello. Hello?
Hello,
Okay.
you are back. I believe you cut out when I suggested we go with the obvious answer for Athena, which is Gal Gadot.
I feel like we can do better.
You think we can do better for Athena than Gal Gadot? I am skeptical. To me, it seems like the only logical upgrade after playing Diana.
Mm. Yeah, also sorry, my internet just crapped out there. I don't know why.
Yep.
Okay, hold on. Let me get the oracle up, and I'll
Yep.
just give me a second on that. We're gonna probably just get the next article just for time purposes, and also I don't know why I'm starting to feel exhausted.
Sorry, that was probably my fault.
No, oh, and I've been up since like 7 a.m. today. Okay, that's
Mm.
we really got to work on your confidence.
My confidence I have plenty of. It's just I also have self-awareness.
Bitch, it ain't self-awareness, it's self-deprecation. Those are not the same thing.
It is if you're not a very good person.
Don, you're a jackass, and no, you're just a jackass. But you're also one of my best friends, which says a lot more about you than it does me. Therefore, and then, therefore, the you can be self-aware. Doesn't involve having to be self-deprecating, and it makes me very sad when you are very hard on yourself.
Mhm.
So I ask that you endeavor in the future to think a little more highly of yourself.
I will try for your sake.
Thank you. Okay, I think I found where we were.
Where in the fuck is the actual plug for my phone's charger? I need to be able to plug it into the wall. But I don't think.
I have no idea what you're saying.
Sorry, I'm multitasking. I was looking for my phone's charger because it's in the fucking yellow right now.
Okay. All right. It's worth stressing too that both Helen of Troy and Achilles are relative afterthoughts in the Odyssey. Former pops up briefly in Book 4 as the Queen of Sparta and wife of Men- Menel- Menel- Menelaus, recognizing Telemachus as Odysseus' son, while the latter is encountered in passing by Odysseus in Book 11 as a spirit in the underworld.
Sorry, read that again. I was distracted.
Multitasking, he says.
Trying to, anyway.
You suck at it.
Yes, thank you. What
All
was
right,
that about? What was that about? Self-awareness not requiring deprecation.
No, I'm just talking shit to you. That's totally different.
Right. Well,
I'm not insulting myself, and you're not insulting yourself, so therefore, that doesn't count as self-deprecation. If anything, that's just deprecation.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's worth stressing too that both Helen of Troy and Achilles are relative afterthoughts in the Odyssey. The former pops up briefly in Book 4 as the Queen of Sparta and wife of Menelaus, recognizing Telemachus as Odysseus' son, while the latter is encountered in passing by Odysseus in Book 11 as a spirit in the underworld.
Yeah, but the problem you have there is that the Iliad and the Odyssey are directly correlated with one another. Like they occur concordantly. There's a reason why they're usually sold in books as a set. Like not saying you need to have read one to read the other, but these characters, insofar as they are characters, instead of, Homer trying to genuinely portray history as he understands it, they have lives of their own. For example, many of the characters, as you just outlined, of who are secondary characters in the Odyssey, are the main characters of the Iliad. Like Helen and Achilles are Helen, Paris, and Achilles are pretty much the main characters of the Iliad. If you make an Odyssey adaptation that overlooks them or treats them like afterthoughts, you have failed in your attempt to create the accurate rendition of the Odyssey. Like they need to still recognizably be those, they're not the main characters right now because this is Odysseus and Telemachus' story, but they are still characters worthy of being main characters in their own stories on the basis that we just did one. It was called the Iliad. You can't just well, yeah, they're not really main characters right now. Yeah, but we just got done reading the book where they were, or the poem where they were main characters. You can't just ignore that. Moving on.
All right. Now to the Oscar rules. Musk and his acolytes have repeatedly accused Nolan of opting for a diverse cast in The Odyssey to meet Academy mandated quotas for Oscar consideration, or as Musk so succinctly tweeted, he wants the awards.
Yes, that probably is a thing. He probably does want an Oscar. I'm kind of surprised, given how pretentiously snobby the Academy is, that he hasn't already gotten one, because he is the king and the entire royal court of snobbish pretensions. So I am kind of amazed he hasn't gotten one already. I'm amazed Christopher Nolan, assuming Christopher Nolan hasn't already gotten his Oscar. I'm amazed that Alfonso Cuarón wound up getting an Oscar before Christopher Nolan did, because people have been unnecessarily filleting Nolan since before Inception was a thing. So I'm kind of amazed he doesn't already have one. Moving on.
Right.
Yeah.
This is not necessarily the case. To meet the Academy's representation and inclusion standards for Oscar eligibility, you will have to meet two of the following standards. Standard A, on-screen representation, themes, and narratives. At least one of the lead actors or significant supporting actors is from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group. At least 30% of all actors in secondary and more minor roles are from at least two underrepresented groups. The main storylines, theme, or narrative of the film is centered on an unrepresented group.
You know what sorts of actors we don't see very often of? That would make perfect sense here, and I will be one of the many who dies on this particular hill. If you wanted underrepresented ethnicity so badly, Chris and or the Academy, ethnic Greek actors don't really get much representation. You could have gone ethnically Greek or at least ethnically Mediterranean, and it could have worked. Because there are Greek actors in Hollywood. I'm not saying they're not, but the specific criteria was underrepresented demographics, and ethnically Greek or ethnically Mediterranean diverse people are underrepresented.
Okay. Hold on.
Incidentally, I think I found somebody. No, we already cast Poseidon. Never mind. But Peter Stormare, Hades. If we ever see Hades in the course of the story.
Okay, big question. Who would you cast as Zeus? Because he does have a big part towards.
the part that's immortalized in God games, basically.
I was also talking about Thunderbringer.
Yes. For pure looks, and because I think he could genuinely play the character well, Henry Cavill.
Oh, I could see that. I think who else if we couldn't get Henry Cavill.
I mean, if we're going for as many Skarsgårds as possible, we could get Alexander Skarsgård in there. He certainly can look the part if you remember his Tarzan days.
And Northman.
Yeah.
Actually, Stellan Skarsgård. Could that work?
We're just maxing out the Skarsgårds. There was a buy one Skarsgård get one free sale, hypothetically speaking.
I mean, it kind of happened. I mean, it does kind of happen when you have a family of actors.
Yeah, the entire family are really fucking good at acting. Who knew? It's a shame they miscast Alexander Skarsgård's flag in the stands 2020. I still don't know how in the fuck they fucked that up. They wrote they adapted one of the greatest stories about pandemics during a pandemic, and they still managed to fuck it up somehow. That will
To
never
be
cease
fair,
to
hey,
frustrate me. Mhm.
everyone got miscast in that
Yes,
special.
everyone did, and it's a shame, especially because Matthew McConaughey had already technically kind of played Flag in the Dark Tower movie. He would have been good in that.
Mm. All right. Stated B. Creative leadership and project team. At least 2 of the following creative leadership positions and department heads: casting director, cinematographer, composer, costume designer, director, editor, hairstylist, makeup artist, producer, production designer, set decorator, sound, visual effects supervisor, writer are from an underrepresented group. At least 6 other crew/team and technical positions, excluding production assistants, are from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group. These positions include, but are not limited to, first AD, gaffer, script supervisor, etc. At least 30% of the film's crew is from an underrepresented group.
Again, playing social justice devil's advocate here. If you wanted the diversity credentials, Achilles basically declared a one-man war on everyone on the battlefield because his bro got killed. And yes, while it is cliche to say, what if Achilles and Patroclus were gay coded? It would still make it's one, a joke that everyone has already made already, and two, it would make more sense to insert the diversity credentialism in a place where everyone automatically kind of just defaults it to anyway.
I recently was that Rome or was it Greek? That they were cool with homosexuality, but you had to be the top.
Yes.
I can't remember if that's Greek or Roman.
Nobody respects the bottom. It's both.
Oh, okay, it was both. I thought it
Yeah.
might have been both, but I wasn't sure.
Yes. Also,
I mean,
incidentally, and to my everlasting joy, Hercules had a male lover. He was quite famous for having a male lover.
yeah, that explains a version of Wolverine who was the lover of Hercules in Marvel.
Lucky bastard.
Which one?
Wolverine.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Uh,
But that does imply that Hercules like short kings. I shall remember this when the camera is not rolling.
okay.
I had to.
Yeah, I only know that from someone doing a skit of that. I can't. It's Pat. I can never pronounce his last name. Guy does like historical like comedy skits
Yeah.
on on TikTok and YouTube. Most people have been convinced, or it's kind of a running joke with his whole channel, is that he is immortal and he's just recapping stuff he remembers seeing in his.
Oh yes. The guy that manages to look like he's from every era of history simultaneously.
He's also done like vampire and werewolf skits, and they're pretty fun because it's actually
Yes.
being more, like realistic in the actual sense of like this shit that would
Yes,
actually
the
happen.
running joke that he's essentially Vandal Savage.
Yeah. Okay. So you know who I'm talking. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Standard C, industry access and opportunities. The film's distribution or financing company has paid apprenticeships or internships that are from underrepresented groups. The film's production, distribution, and/or financing company offers training and/or work opportunities for below-the-line skill development to people with underrepresented groups.
again, I'm just going to keep defaulting back to why not introduce your minorities in ways that make sense? Have Cersei and Calypso be of a different ethnicity, since their islands are supposed to be beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which by Greek standards is basically the end of the world. Have there be a stronger than usual deference towards Greek, like ethnically Greek or Mediterranean casting. Have Achilles and Patroclus actually be gay, so you get your gay fucking representation in. Like, there are ways to introduce these things to the story that don't revolve around breaking the story. Problem is, social justice is more interested in the actual breaking of the story than they are in the identity categories. They actually are so bog standard anti-art. They're actually more interested in breaking pre-established or pre-existing stories than they are in actually serving the identities that they like using as political wedges and human shields. This is why hashtag not your shield was a thing all those decades ago, or yeah, in the prime time of Gamergate. It's because a bunch of us realized that our identities were essentially being used as human shields for ideologies we didn't agree with. Not to mention held hostage, because every time you disagree with one of the critical theory academics on something your identity was thought to think, you got hit with the internalized hatred of yourself, or the you're not an actual this demographic, you're just claiming to be, or whatever else the fuck. Moving on.
All right. Standard D, audience development. The studio and/or film company has multiple in-house senior executives from underrepresented groups, must include individuals from underrepresented racial or ethnic groups on their marketing, publicity, and/or distribution teams. The underrepresented groups in questioning include women, racial and ethnic group, LGBTQ+, people with cognitive or physical disabilities, or who are deaf or hard of hearing.
I'm just gonna throw out to that last one. Give me an accurate version of Hephaestus. Hephaestus is probably the most disabled of all the Olympians. Give me an accurate Hephaestus. I don't really care for disability representation, but assuming that is the thing you've decided you need, give me an accurate Hephaestus. The malformed, maladapted, broken, forge deity. That would be some disability representation that I would actually like, in theory. Because Hephaestus is based on awesome.
All right. Moving up.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we're almost done. Again, 2 of these standards need to be satisfied for Oscar eligibility, so you can still have an all-white cast and win Oscars if you satisfy other standards. And for an example of this, Musk & Co. can look no further than Nolan's previous film, Oppenheimer, which had an all-white cast and took home 7 Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Director for Nolan.
Wait, he's won an Oscar? Why the fuck do you care then, Chris? If you've already won your Oscar, then why do you even care about what? Now let's be real here. Let's remember that these rules exist in a world where people actually function and not just on paper. Don't you dare try to tell me that the Oscars never weight movies that film more of these than the rest of them. I.e., sure, does a movie have to check as many boxes as it can to win? No, but in practice, the Academy often goes, the more boxes checked, the better. But incidentally, Christopher Nolan should not have cared anyway, because Christopher Nolan already has his Oscar. Like, the common trend is for someone to really, really try very, very hard to get an Oscar, and then once they've got it, they basically treat it like job security forever, because that's how the industry treats it. But Christopher Nolan already has his Oscar. They just confirmed it. So apart from his own pretensions and his own ideologically warped bullshit, I don't see a practical reason why he would care what the Academy thinks. But Christopher Nolan is a soulless automaton, so I'm sure he does genuinely believe in all the social justice shit, because he was programmed to do so, like any good robot. Why he shouldn't have been chosen to adapt the Odyssey. I don't know if androids dream of electric sheep, but I know Christopher Nolan's operating doesn't dream of anything that isn't fundamentally of the assembly line mentality. Moving on.
The film satisfied standard B by having women as its costume designer, production designer, editor, and head of makeup. Satisfied standard C due to Universal Studios' in-house apprenticeship programs, and satisfied standard D because Universal has a woman as its chairman, Donna Langley, a woman as its president of international distribution, Veronica Kwan Vanderberg, and a black person as its president of domestic marketing, Dwight Keynes, along with other women on its leadership team. Okay.
Again, let's not act like the Academy doesn't put their thumb on the scale for movies that qualify for more than they allotted 2 of these. They genuinely prefer a movie that does all of them simultaneously. And I'm not even saying you can't make a good movie that checks all those boxes simultaneously. But what I am going to say is that you can't do that and still be social justice oriented or woke, because social justice, being rooted as it is in post-Frankfurt School critical theory and neo-Hegelianism, is more interested in unmaking the standards of quality, beauty, value, etc., and proving these things to be quote-unquote social constructs than it is in creating a good story. In fact, if you make a story that is good by normative standards, then social justice will disown you more often than not. Because the unmaking of storytelling, of merit, of quality, etc., is more the point of post-Frankfurt School neo-Hegelian critical theory than is the diversity identity bullshit. The diversity identity bullshit merely gives them several categories of human shield to use to stealthily unmake as many institutions, as many IPs, as many long-standing idols as they can. It's one of the things that makes it insufferable to actually have to deal with a genuinely social justice-oriented person, because you can point out to them ways that you can have your identity voodoo and still tell a good story, and they will actively go against you because not making a good story was the fucking point. Because if I make all stories shit, then people can't say anything about quality standards anymore, because all things are an empty void that I must legislate to create the world as I would desire it to be. Moving on.
Alright. As you can plainly see, the arguments levied by Musk and his fellow trolls do not hold water, or as another bard once wrote, they are nothing more than a tale told by an idiot full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. No, that would be this entire article.
Yeah, you guys failed to actually address the arguments because you didn't actually bother to understand the arguments nor the people who made them. You just tried to morally and intellectually grandstand while completely ignoring the actual point. It's funny how often that happens. And by funny, I mean, of course, that it is inevitable, because as I just covered, the unmaking and unmanning of standards of merit wherever they can be found is more the point than even the identity voodoo is.
Just give me a second. All right, but that was the end of that article, and we're gonna move on to the trailers we have and try to get through whatever we got, what we can before I start to feel really tired. Well, actually, I need to get up early, so
Mm-hmm.
no, I'm not working. If anyone was worried about that, I got some obligations that I need to wake up early for. So,
Mm-hmm.
all right. So this one is the Lanterns. Second teaser trailer.
Mm-hmm.
We've made no secret on how we feel about the Lantern show.
As with so many things in the apparent gunverse, so much wasted potential, so little time.
I think I somewhat pitched one. I pitched it Dawn when we're off camera, and we'll get into it as we move along in this. But
I
I've
think you did mention it on stream last time, too.
true, but I don't think I went into full detail of the ideas. It's because it's been a minute, so I've had time to really think about it. So
Yeah.
all right. How I would do this show, like that's what I was getting at.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get to that after a little bit. Uh,
Yeah. Glowing yellow banana.
I was gonna say lime. Not just banana.
Yeah, banana.
Okay.
This ring, it's the greatest weapon in the universe. When and if to use it, that's the whole ball game, Junior.
Did you just use that ring to counterfeit money?
No.
Fact that it's clearly a reaction to how everyone's responding to the first teaser.
Mm-hmm.
I think the tone is just still off for me.
Yeah, it feels very flat. Like, almost like obligatory or perfunctory. It doesn't feel like anyone who made this actually wanted to make it. It feels like the studio mandated we need a Green Lantern project, so come up with one.
Again, I can pitch what I've gotten. I do want to wait until like we're halfway through before I start doing that because I feel like that's going to set up expectations for this that we shouldn't have.
Yeah, banana.
Banana.
Tell me how you got it. The ring.
You know how I got it. I sure as hell didn't interview for it.
Oh, well, shit, maybe you should have. Power like that, shouldn't you have to work for it?
I've been doing this since you were a baby. The only way you're gonna get this ring is over my dead fucking body.
That's not how the Lantern rings work. If
Yeah,
he didn't already have one, there's no point in training him.
And they're making Hal. I mean, like I know Hal's been an asshole before, but he just seems like such a prick.
Unless they're actually going for the parallax reveal, I'm going to be very pissed at this.
That seems like the only logical reason, but still, like it just feels so.
Also, I'm assuming this is set well before Superman 2025 was, because if Hal has been the only Green Lantern on Earth for this entire time, then someone is going to need to explain the fuck to me what the fuck Guy Gardner was doing existing.
Mm.
Because either there are multiple lanterns on Earth, as there should be, or there are time shenanigans afoot.
Right. Banana?
Banana.
I think he likes me. Everybody is lying to us.
We're not leaving here till we find out what they're hiding. Danger's part of the job. You need to be fearless.
How are you chosen for this?
It's only one question. Are you afraid?
That's far from the only questions the Guardians would be asking, assuming they're even in this universe. And no, the Green Lanterns are not defined solely by their opposition to the yellow light of fear. There's an entire fucking emotional spectrum, assuming they're bothering to bother with it.
Probably not.
It's not like that will totally cripple our world building potential or anything. Oh wait, yes, it will, and our apparently abortive cinematic universe is already circling the fucking drain.
Another 20 seconds?
Banana.
You afraid?
Are you afraid? Are you afraid?
Okay, I am now like 80% sure they're setting up Parallax.
Also, Guy Gardner was there. They just showed a brief, so like
Okay,
in
so
his full attire, by the way.
okay, good. That's something, but it raises questions about Hal thinking he was the only Green Lantern on Earth.
I don't.
Like, did the Guardians never call everybody in for a meeting every now and then, like they're supposed to?
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, and like I said, like I said, I do think I mentioned I have briefly talked about it, but like I said, I wrote some ideas down for it. Mainly just first season. I have ideas for if it were to continue or not. Really depends on the reception of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
8 episodes first season. Like the pitch for it, like one sentence pitch for an elevator pitch for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
One thing, calling it Green Lanterns. How I would describe my interpretation of it would be True Detective season 1 meets Farscape.
Mm-hmm.
And I would recast Hal Jordan. None against Kyle Chandler. He's a good actor. I've seen him in a lot of stuff. He's a good actor, but I just don't think he plays Hal well.
No.
And, we do have the fan casting that would work immensely. Nathan Fillion as Hal Jordan, right?
That for some reason they made him Guy Gardner, even though that doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, but I mean, I still keep Aaron Pierre as John Stewart, right?
Yeah, I think he'll do fine.
Yeah, he's a good actor. I saw him in what was it called? It's a Netflix movie. It's good though, and he was good in it.
Mhm.
But the general idea I had for it was tasked with both training the. I'm reading the excerpt I wrote here. Tasked with both training the newest Lantern, Hal Jordan decides to test the newly minted John Stewart by letting him help track down an intergalactic serial killer known as the Evil Star, tracking him back to their home planet. They soon discover that Evil Star is in communion with something far older and more dangerous than the killer. After defeating and recapturing Serial Killer, Hal leaves in order to bring him back to Oa, while John stays behind in order to investigate something called the Center, the thing Evil Star was speaking to. And Hal is extra driven to stop Evil Star because the serial killer killed a fellow Green Lantern, Tomar Ray, not too long ago, and Hal is torn between bringing the killer to face justice or simple revenge. Now tell me that doesn't sound a lot better.
Yeah, no, it does. It does.
Plus,
It's
the main character, the main villain, right, Evil Star, is kind of a obscure enough like Green Lantern villain that well, it works with James Gunn's sensibilities.
yeah. It would most definitely work and work better.
I did cast Evil Star. I don't know if the actor is still acting per se, but if anyone's seen Farscape and knows the character of Scorpius, I want that actor who played him to play Evil Star.
Yeah, that could work.
Yeah. Because I think the True Detective angle, mainly because, Green Lanterns as they are from the Silver Age onward, they're space cops, right?
Yeah.
But we mostly never actually really genuinely see that outside of like animation or comics.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly they're just portrayed as like intergalactic superheroes, which is fine, but there's
the point of it.
Yeah. So I think even adding like the detective angle, like them actually like looking for evidence, tracking, or like investigating
Many
stuff is really
characters would benefit from the reminder that DC Comics is supposed to be short for Detective Comics.
yeah. And so I just think it would be very. I just think with this they're kind of forgetting the very fantastical elements of Green Lantern that make Green Lantern so special and iconic.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of showing it here now in the second teaser, but I still feel like it's not going hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels very bitter,
Yeah.
Like even with the first season of True Detective, while yes, the main character, well, sort of main character, Russ Cole, was a very cynical, borderline nihilistic character. He had the arc by the end of finding hope.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't feel like that's the trajectory going here.
It feels very much like they're gonna take a large part of the mythos and either not reference it at all or take a big shit all over it.
Yeah. All right. Banana.
Are you afraid?
Was raised fearless, and I'll do this better than he's ever done it before.
Then go and get it. John's.
Banana. August 16th, or no, it was 17th?
Mm.
No, it's 16th. Okay. Okay, give me one
So
sec.
this will be out after Supergirl then, because I believe Supergirl is in
July.
early June.
That's it.
July.
if either late June or early July. I'm not sure.
Mm. So we'll get the Odyssey maybe before Supergirl. Interesting.
Okay, this is I wasn't really sure where to put this, so I just had this after Lanterns.
Mm.
But given the end, the boys, we have the first look of Vought Rising.
Mm.
Which I think, weirdly enough, we were more excited for this than the boys.
Yeah.
Well, I think the weirdest thing is like with the spin-offs, which seem to be more set in universe than giving us this more meta outsider view of everything.
Mm.
We
The
really get
the world that's created is much more interesting than its main plot.
okay. June 26th was Supergirl comes out. Okay.
Okay.
Plus, this is set in like the 50s, so they're gonna have a really nice aesthetic to it that I really dig. So
Yeah, the retro aesthetic's cool.
yeah.
And honestly, I like a lot of the first generation soups we've seen better than the modern ones.
Well, they always feel more. Well, to be fair, every soup that we've seen that is not in the boys' show
Hmm.
seems to be more. Well, it gets a lot more time to be fleshed out and be more human.
Than the seven do.
Well, I was even talking like the side soups that show up in the boys, which seem to be more just like caricatures and less refined or
Mhm.
defined.
My question is, are we gonna see Frederick Vaught, and are we gonna see Liberty, aka Stormfront, again?
Oh yeah, she's in here. Like that's been mentioned many times.
Mhm.
I don't know about Frederick Vaughn, but then there's also Thomas Godolkin because he was like Vaught's right hand man,
Mhm.
and he died in not technically died because he also has to found Godolkin University as well, which I think was in the
For
60s.
Gen V.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sucks. He got canceled.
Yeah. Again, speaking of characters, I'd rather follow than the seven.
Well, because it would be interesting to see the world of the boys after Homelander and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, Mexico is kind of going to do that. The boys Mexico,
Mhm.
even though Cipher is supposed to be in there and he died. So
Mhm.
I'm not sure if it's a prequel or something. I'm not sure. Anyway, Banana.
Banana.
You know, if you're working on something, maybe I could help. I want to fight for the flag. I want to be a hero.
Soulja Boy without the beard looks a lot more like innocent, weirdly.
Yes. Which he's supposed to be fair.
Well, yeah, I guess it's like his early years, so he's not as like broken. I guess is the best way I could say.
Mhm. Well, I was more in terms of public image They basically sold him as a Captain America, so he has to look boyish and innocent, like
Yeah,
Steve.
yeah, that's fair. Costume, like the costumes and everything look fucking amazing. I know we saw like the first images before and they looked great, but seeing them like in motion and on camera and stuff.
Yeah, it's the universe of the setting having more interesting things in it than the premise.
Well, also like weirdly enough, with the boys, they tend to lean more into general like more classic style of superhero costumes than a lot of the more traditional superhero stuff, like superhero live action stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Which actually, now that I think about it, actually does seem kind of weird that a parody universe seems to make superhero costumes better than actual superhero universes.
Mm.
Well, live action superhero universe, mind you.
Mm.
Huh.
Banana?
Banana.
God blessed us with these extraordinary heroes.
Strange things happening every day.
Angel Grove Manor, not Medical Center. That's. Huh. To be fair, yeah, no, they. Huh. Well, it's gone rebranded then. Okay.
Also, is that a Power Rangers reference?
Well, it was in season 2 of Boys, where Stormfront was conducting experiments.
Right.
I never put that together. Huh. I don't think it was intentional. I don't think these guys really watch Power Rangers like that, so.
Okay. Because Angel Grove was the main city they were protecting in
Yeah, I
most of
remember.
the Zordon seasons.
No, Sage Grove. Sorry. I fucking.
Okay.
Uh,
So it
I'm sorry.
wasn't the show that did that, it was you that did that. Alright.
Yeah, Sage Grove. That's.
Okay.
Banana?
Banana.
Yeah, this is good. This feels good. Like, Banana?
Yeah, banana.
There is a brighter future. All we need to do is take it.
2027.
Mm.
I think we might see a glimpse of Frederick Vaughn, but I'm not sure.
Mm. We might not see him.
He's kind of the lynch. It's weird, like, because he's supposed to be the linchpin of everything.
Yeah, it's supposed to be an origin story, kind of. Or at least an origin story in media res.
You think? I know, like, he kind of was, like, this mythic figure more so in The Boys, given, everything he did. But this would have been the time where he was moving, like, he was doing stuff.
Yeah.
So
I guess the question is, are they going to actually pay that off or not?
Okay. I think we're just going to do one more trailer and then we'll save the last 2 trailers for next week.
Yep.
Just give me a second.
Mm.
Okay, so now we have some Dawn and I are very excited to see and talk about the official final trailer for Masters of the Universe. Anything to add on before we continue?
Nope. Just this looks better than a lot of people seem to think it is. I think because not many people remember how good Bumblebee was.
Also, like, well, I mean, if you look at Travis Knight's filmography from Leica, because I think he founded Leica, right?
I think so.
Or was like one of the founders at least.
Yeah.
The dude has like this, to quote Santa Claus, from Rise of the Guardians,
Mhm.
his well, to paraphrase at least, Travis Knight's center is this grand wonder of things that he just lets people see all this fantastical, amazing like stories and stuff.
And we
Through
shall see. And we shall see if it pays off.
I certainly think it has so far.
Yeah, like I said, Bumblebee is the best live action Transformers we've gotten so far.
It's not a high bar, but yeah.
No, but given that without him we might not have ever gotten good Transformers back. It might
Yeah.
have always been slightly permanently stained by Michael Bay and his Bayisms. But
All right. Banana.
no. By the power of Grayskull.
I don't have the voice for it, nor the cadence that you do to pull it off. So. Over 40 years ago.
Adam, when you hold the magic sword, what do you say?
By the power of Grayskull.
Okay, the fact that it says just that they're paying homage to the original cartoon with that shows you I say that shows you everything you need to know about this movie.
You would think.
Like it says over 40 years ago.
Yeah.
He inspired hold on. He saved his universe. Inspired a generation. I genuinely think if someone wasn't as passionate and like really devoted to this IP, that would not.
My only real question is: are they going to reference the 2002 series as well?
I'm gonna be honest with you, probably not, mainly because I don't think a lot of people remember that one, but also because Travis Knight has mentioned that the original was the one he grew up watching. So
Fair enough.
I do agree with you though. That one is kind of the 2001. What was it like 2002?
2002.
Is kind of an underrated cult classic of a series that really should have gotten a lot more acclaim than it did.
Mm.
So yeah.
Like
so,
the 2011 Thundercats, which also kind of.
oh my god! Don't get me. Oh my god! Don't get me started on that.
Yeah.
That's my that
They're
one.
they're actually very similar. I really would have liked to have seen a crossover between those two.
But to be fair, I don't know if that would have been possible with the 9-year difference, but
Yeah.
God,
in a world where the 2002 version had a larger impact than it apparently did.
Anyway, Power Grayskull?
By the power of Grayskull.
By the power of Grayskull.
Go on. Now you're ready.
It seems the
Rosario Dawson as I don't remember that like the bird sorceress lady. I can't remember her name.
What the fuck is her name?
Hold on, you know what? She's probably on the IMDb.
Mm.
So hold on. Sorcery.
Mm.
That's her name.
Mm.
Okay. I'm just now reminded that the 80s weren't that creative with naming.
No, they weren't.
All right. By the power of Grayskull?
By the power of Grayskull.
The prodigal prince has returned. I am a devil, but I mean to be a god.
What am I supposed to do?
You are he who will restore peace to Eternia.
Skeletor took my family, and he destroyed.
Okay. Just that little like mockery and just the campiness of Skeletor there.
Yeah, I think Jared Leto finally found a role that works for him and his weird ass like method tendencies.
I mean, honestly, the shit he pulled with Joker in Suicide Squad, I wouldn't call that method. I'd call that fucking insanity.
Well, one may very much tend to resemble the other. That's why everybody mocks method actors. Because if you let it get too deep in you, you never come out again.
But also, I'm a devil that means to be a god. That goes hard as fuck.
Yeah, that is a baller line.
Yeah,
and
just like,
it works with his delivery too. Again, I think we may have finally found something over the top enough for Jared Leto to make sense.
Yeah. I still don't like him as a person, but
well, yeah, I mean the man is nuts. He's a few
he's batshit. He's batshit.
Yeah, he's a few he's a few gemstones shy of a full gauntlet here.
That's a nice reference there. That was good. That's good.
By the power of Grayskull.
Yep.
Our world. I'm gonna fight for it. Mechanic. And Ram Man.
Hell yeah!
And you, Fisto. Mr. Allen! It's Adam, dude.
Hey, put your neck away.
God, they just look good. Like, they're modernized, but they're not like, it's not overly designed, you know?
Right.
And they don't feel out of place, you know? They don't feel like, it all feels like it's coherent in the world.
Yeah.
Not many adaptations like this do that.
Not surprised the Travis Knight did it, though.
Yeah. Honestly, I kind of want to actually see G.I. Joe. Because I think he actually would do that pretty fucking well.
He's one of the creatives like have paid every time I pitch it.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I'm just like I'm trying to think of like other like toy like you know like other like IPs like this that technically are kiddish but have that like more mature undertone that it rarely gets tapped on.
That's a good question. I don't know.
That's why I said G.I. Joe. It's like
Sorry, I've got to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back.
okay. All right. Well, I guess I should enthrall people for a moment. One moment. Okay. Sugar Skulls by Envy of the Coast. Isabella, stand a little bit taller. I don't deserve your tears any more than you deserve the fears that I have left you with, dear. May I bless you every last year. She's just a little girl. She knows nothing of this little game we like to play. So tell the martyrs to wait at the gate. This is an actual case of the truth. At least that's why they call what they call it these days. So tell your brothers and sisters to wait, because love is nothing to waste. And I swore, never your heart shall I break. Widowed and a little less faithful, she lets the sidewalk sympathize with every step she takes. Ankles growing weak, dear. May he bless you every last tear. Bless your every last tear. She's a little girl. She knows nothing of this little game we like to play. So tell the martyrs to wait at the gate. This is an actual case of the truth. At least that's what they call it these days. So tell your brothers and sisters to wait, because love none to waste. And I swore, never your heart shall I break. Isabella, stand a little bit taller. I am the aisle in the back beside the votive light. Who did this to you, dear? May you never shed a damn tear. So tell the martyrs to wait at the gates. At least this is an actual case of the truth. At least that's what they call it these days. So tell your brothers and sisters to wait, because love is nothing to waste, and I swore never your heart shall I break. What Could Have Been by Ray Chin and Sting. I am the monster you created. You ripped down all my parts. And worst of all, for me to live, I gotta kill the part of me that saw that I needed you more. Hope you know we had everything. And you broke me and left these pieces. I want you to hurt like you hurt me today, and I want you to lose like I lose when I play What Could Have Been. Oh, what could have been. Why don't you love who I am? What we could have been. I am your ghost, a fallen angel. You ripped out all my parts. I couldn't care what invention you made me, because I was meant to be yours. I hope you know we had everything, and you broke me and left these pieces. I want you to hurt like you hurt me today, and I want you to lose like I lose when I play. What could have been. Alright. Guns for Hire by Woodkid. Hold the dice, your turn to roll, before they fall through your fingers. Not a good fight to lose control. Right as the earth is unraveling, you play with your blocks until they break, and these walls come tumbling down. Oh, they're tumbling down. You're out of time, make your move, live or die while the fuse is lit and there's no turning back. Kiss your perfect day goodbye, because the world is on fire. Tuck your innocence goodnight. You sold your friends like guns for hire. Go play with your blocks, and now you'll pay when these walls come tumbling down. Oh, they're tumbling down. Resting on a knife, your heavy souls. With all this weight buckling down on you now, don't you drown and float away. Not a good time to lose control. Right as your marionettes cut their strings and run away. You're out of time, make your move. Live or die while the fuse is lit and there's no turning back. Kiss your perfect day goodbye, because the world is on fire. Tuck your innocence goodnight. You sold your friends like guns for hire. Go play with your blocks, and now you'll pay when these walls come tumbling down. Oh, they're tumbling down. Secrets of the American Gods by Blind Guardian. Great Lord, your love's divine. I spread your grace, I share your light. For the shore of hell we're burning, purgatory's smell. Went a preacher with a crucifix, brought mayhem and despair. So here comes a new God, be brave. A God spelled illusion, a breeding of sin, I'll carry life.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay. I went through like 3 songs.
Yes, I heard you. It was still
All
close
of them?
enough. I was so close enough to the phone I could hear what you were saying.
Okay.
Anyway, back on point. By the power of Grayskull.
All right, 1 sec. Okay, there we go.
Fisto! Mr. Allen! It's Hanlon, dude.
Hey, put your neck away. Let me show you what reading power looks like.
The time for talk is over.
This also just feels like an episode brought to live action, really.
Yeah.
I say that as a good thing, obviously. It's like,
Yeah. They understood what the assignment was.
yeah. Oh my god, Travis Knight directing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Would it be considerably better than what we've gotten in recent years? Yes.
And then like you get the guys who worked on
Although he'd probably default back to the 80s version, so that wouldn't be quite so good.
well, I mean he'd use that as a basis, but I think he'd also like this seems like a lot more of a mature version of the 80s cartoon, obviously.
Mm.
You know, it doesn't so I don't know, I think he could do it well. Like you get the guys who worked on like John Wick, Shang-Chi to do the action and stuff.
Yeah. That'd be good.
Be fair, I would just love to see a proper adaptation of Casey Jones.
Mm. I know you would.
All right.
By the power of Grayskull.
Help me with this? Whoa.
It is quite heavy, so if you
Oh,
could just...
my god, yeah.
That's kind of funny. It's like in a cute kind of corny kind of way.
Mm.
Yeah, so with that, folks, want to say goodbye, adios. Oh, hold on. Damn, so He-Man can actually be good now? I'd say so.
I hope so. I hope we are more correct than the EFAP crowd is, at least.
Look, I honestly stopped paying attention to their opinion a long time ago. It's just like
I did too. They've jumped at shadows too many times for it to really make much difference to me. I'm just aware that there is a controversy, and I'm hoping
no. Look, I
that the
understand.
controversy
Look,
is overblown. Yeah.
I understand being cautiously optimistic about this because it has. There are 1,000 ways it can go wrong.
Yeah.
But
many of them involving primarily Jared Leto, but that's a different story for a different day.
But given who's directing it, given all we've seen of it, given how kind of that odd little
and how the journalist kept taking him out of context.
Yeah. But also when we've watched this, you gotta admit there's that little spark of joy igniting.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of what I liked about Thor Ragnarok, actually.
Everyone's entitled to their opinion.
I know you don't like that one.
Look, I don't think it's a bad movie. I feel like it could have been a good balance between serious and the comedy.
Well, we saw what happens when Taiga is completely off his leash with Love and Thunder.
Yeah. Anyway,
so that probably was the serious, comparatively more toned down version we got in Ragnarok.
And that makes me sad.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, avideze, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
shalom and fuck off. Also, please be good. We would very much hate for the EFAP crowd to be right and us to be wrong. Please be good.
All right. Well, we'll see you, everyone. See ya.
Cheers, guys.
Have a happy Memorial Day, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.